And of course, the Memorial Day weekend, as you were saying, more visitors there than would be normally.
Tons of tourists.
We're going to talk about the latest polls now, predicting a very close general election matchup between Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton. The current Real Clear Politics average of polls shows Clinton with a slim 1-point lead nationally. Just 1 point. This despite the turmoil of the Republican primaries and the Never Trump movement within the GOP. So is Hillary in serious trouble? I should say Hillary Clinton. Lauren Leader-Chivee is co-founder and CEO of All In Together, and Bree Payton is the millennial politics and pop culture writer for The Federalist. Thank you both for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. So what about these latest polls? Bree, I'll start with you. I mean, she has gone down significantly, and this lead has come down to 1 point. What is causing that?
Right. So I think that Hillary Clinton is her own worst enemy, and I think that she's the best thing that could have happened to Donald Trump in this election cycle. When you look at that data and kind of parse it down further and look at how she's doing in demographics that she's supposed to be just totally crushing, you can see that she's barely competitive with Donald Trump. I mean, when you look at the unfavorability and favorability ratings among women, which is supposed to be her wheelhouse, she barely has something like an 11-point lead over Donald Trump, which is pretty surprising given that every other thing out of Trump's mouth is something not so great about women. So I think this just really speaks to the larger fact that she has a lot of mistakes in her past. I think people aren't going to forget the fact that she joked about getting a sex offender off, and I think they're not going to forget the fact that she has made light of or tried to minimize allegations of sexual assault in the past.
And you can add to that, Lauren, the IG report most recently that's come out that has not gone away, and the FBI investigation is still outstanding.
Well, first of all, I think we're hugely overweighting the importance of these polls. In total, there were about 5 polls that came out in the last couple days. They polled a total of about 4,000 Americans out of 146 million registered voters. And, you know, at the same point in the campaign, in the last 2 presidential cycles, we've also seen similar data where you had candidates that ran neck and neck. The reality is, first of all, we don't elect our presidents through the popular vote. We have an electoral college. And so in many ways, these kind of popular vote related polls are really not especially meaningful, and I think we're sort of overreading into them. What's really interesting is to look more seriously at the electoral map and where the Democrats, you know, let alone, regardless of who the candidate is, but the way in which Democrats have dominated the electoral map, even just as the consistent states that they've won since the early 90s.
But Lauren,
and
this is a very different race, and you know, Donald Trump
we still
himself,
have an electoral college.
Well, many people saying that, you know, those states, the swing states specifically, could change. It could swing and be all over the place
in
this
both
time.
directions, right? So there are a lot of questions about whether or not Republicans will retain states like Arizona, which have been won by Republicans historically, but because of the increased participation of minorities and the representation of minorities in that state, that may become a blue state. And, you know, clearly I think Pennsylvania, North Carolina are going to be very serious contests, but you look at even what happened in Florida, the passion of minority voters in Florida and the frustration with some of Trump's anti-minority rhetoric, I think it's going to be a serious problem. So I'm not saying that there aren't some challenges and issues for Hillary Clinton. I think we all understand that, and certainly the more he goes after her, the more that becomes real.
Let me jump over to Bree. So Bree, what do you think the end result will be for Hillary Clinton?
I think her goose is cooked. I think you can look at, we don't have to just look at polling data to indicate this. You can look at states that she won in 2008 and won in 2016, like Ohio, which she won both times, and see that, yes, she did win this time, but she lost 500,000 voters. So even the people who voted for her 8 years ago, they're not so sure about her now.
And Lauren, something that I was looking at when you take a look at the polls, if you just stay away from the numbers specifically, as you were mentioning, if you just look at what is happening to Hillary Clinton, she is slowly going down and Donald Trump is slowly going up. So if that is a trend that continues, then she'll be in trouble.
Well, look, I mean, Trump has been extraordinarily effective in destroying the reputations and the credibility of the candidates who've run against him. I mean, that is fundamentally how he won the nomination. And he's been incredibly effective at using the media and using his free media to go after other candidates in very personal ways, which
but
he's clearly
doesn't really
doing
have
again.
to use the media in terms of the FBI investigation, in terms of the Clinton Foundation. I mean, those are things that Hillary Clinton has done to herself.
Well, I think they're going to continue to be issues, and I think the campaign is going to have to manage those. But the reality is it's very hard to respond to attacks when they're, you know, perpetual and constant and changing every minute of the day. I mean, she is getting it from all sides. I do think that we're going to see a significant increase in her numbers after the convention. I mean, that always happens, first of all, and that's why I think the polling numbers early on. I mean, Bree, we'll come back in November and we'll see which one of us was right. I think it's way too early to be talking about any candidate who's going to win or lose. One thing we've learned in this election, nobody can predict this early in the cycle where we're going.
Yeah, we don't know what's going to happen there. Thank you both for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.